The tactical skill I will be talking about is bunt defense. In softball, bunts can be used in a variety of different situations, and therefore there is a bunt defense to help field a bunt if it occurs. The knowledge a player in bunt defense must have is they must know the certain situations in which a bunt may occur, as well as the different types of bunts. So there are a variety of different bunts. You have your sacrifice bunt, you have a squeeze bunt, you have a push bunt, and you can also, you have a surprise bunt, which is you bunting for a base hit. So the knowledge the players must have is they must know when or where the batter's standing. For all types of bunts, they must know that the batter will be in the front of the box, as this will help to make sure their bunt is fair. For a sacrifice bunt, the hitter will show early. For a surprise bunt, they'll show late. And with all bunts, usually you'll see the hitter's hands choked up. It's also important for the fielders to know a situation when this might happen. Usually when there's a runner on first base, you can expect whoever's in the box to offer some type of bunt to try and move that runner. Other knowledge they might need to know is usually your number 2 hitter in most situations is someone who can hit, but who also is someone who can bunt, also has speed. Sometimes too, when you get to the bottom of the order, your 8-9 hitters. For the rules, a hitter can bunt, foul twice, so for 2 strikes, but if they do have 2 strikes on them and they offer a bunt and that's foul, then they're out. It has to be fair the 3rd time. It's also important to know field conditions. Different playing conditions may be beneficial for bunting. A field where it's maybe like it had just rained or something like that, where the bunt's gonna die, that's beneficial for a team to bunt. Situations to use, I kind of talked about one so far, is when there's a runner on first or possibly runner on second, if you're really trying to move them, especially if it's a close game and you need just a small amount of runs, maybe 1 or 2. That's a good time to use a bunt. Another time is you can do a different type of bunt, a squeeze. If you have a runner on third, usually you want this person to be fast, and the hitter's getting in the box and they're bunting any type of pitches. It doesn't matter if it's high or low, because on the pitch, that base runner is stealing home. This could be beneficial too if you know it will mess up the fielders, or they're not communicating or can't field the bunt well, as well as give you a run. Another situation to use a bunt is if your team for some reason can't hit off the opposing pitcher, you can go to small ball and try bunting as well to try and get runners on. For rules to follow from a defensive standpoint, there's not really rules to follow. You do though want to make sure that all of your bases are covered so that you have plays. To avoid players getting hurt, you do want to try and keep the pitcher out of it as much as possible. Usually the third baseman is your primary. Errors you might see from a bunt defense standpoint is confusion between where players, especially second base and shortstop and first base, where players should go when no runners are on opposed to when you have 1 or more runners on. How you can recorrect this is just to remind them to think smart, think what makes sense. So when there's a runner on base, it makes the most sense to keep first base home so they can cover first base, so that second base is covered and third base is covered. Because what happens is if first base doesn't stay home and they pull up, second base now has to cover first base, shortstop has to cover second base, and you have third base wide open. So just reminding them to think smart, think what makes sense. Another error you might see is pulling up too soon, maybe reading the hands too soon, and then good hitters will be able to push bunt it past the fielders. So that's just also a game awareness thing, recorrecting them, reminding them to first stand in their normal position. If if they think they might bunt or offer, they can pull up a little bit, but don't give it away too soon, especially third base, making sure they're creeping instead of showing it earlier. Next, I'm going to take you through what this skill will look like and where each fielder should go, and we'll go from there. Okay, using this diagram, I'm going to explain this tactical skill. So first, I'm just going to make sure everyone's familiar with the softball field. So we have home plate here, first base is here, second base is here, third base is here, and this is the pitching circle. So the X's represent the players. So here we have first base, second base, shortstop, and third base. And where the red X's are is their initial position. So before the hitter steps in the box, they are in this position. So there are two different bunt defenses that a team will need to know. The first we will go through if there are no runners on. So no one's on base, the batter steps in the box. So what happens is the fielders have to read the hitter's hands as well as their placement in the box, either left or right, to determine if they're going to bunt. Now in this situation with no one on, the type of bunt is probably going to be for a hit, so the batter may square later. So what's going to happen, since no one's on, is third base is going to charge for the bunt and come up here. First base is also charging. Now catcher, who's right here, will help with anything in that general area. Pitcher will try and stay out of it as much as possible, but if there's anything right there, they will field it. Okay, so these are the people in charge of fielding the bunt. Now, between these two, we have to make sure the bases are covered so that a play can be made. So once this hitter shows bunt, second base is going to cover first base so that we can make a play. Shortstop will also go over to second base because if there happens to be an overthrow and this runner tries to take two bases. So this is a normal bunt defense. Now I am going to erase everything, and now we're going to pretend like we have runners on. So we're going to pretend like this is a runner, this circle. So this is now the bunt defense. If there's any runners on, it doesn't matter if there's runners at first and second or just first. So now, I'm going to use a different color. I'm going to use green. So now, same thing. Fielders have to read the hitter's hands as well as where they're set up in the box. Now, though, there's two types of bunts. They could do a sacrifice bunt, meaning they're going to show early because they're sacrificing themselves to move this runner to second base. They could also still base for a hit. It depends. So now what's going to happen is we need all the bases covered for plays because we have a play available at second base now and we have a play available at first. So now what's going to happen is third base is doing the exact same thing. They're charging, although they have to cover more space. Catcher, same thing's covering here. Pitcher now has to cover anything on the first baseline because what's happening is everyone is now shifting to their right. So third base needs to make sure third base is covered. Second base is going to shift to second base, and the biggest difference now is first base is staying home. They're staying here so that they can cover first base for a play. So this is the other type of bunt defense.